here at Zazu, we spend a lot of our time paying attention to the quality of the pork that we work with, or the quality of all the animals that we work with. We want to know the sourcing. We want to know how their lives are. We want to know what they're fed. We generally want to know the person who's raising them.
Everything about them.
There are no sort of unimportant parts to us.
Right.
We're very transparent about our sort of ethical treatment of animals, and we really kind of want to walk that walk.
Yeah, and that all adds to the bottom line of your quality.
It all ultimately leads to better tasting pork. So this here's a pig, and I will just start breaking it down.
Great.
I'm going to take, so as far as the parts go, this is the ham. This is the back leg of the pig.
Okay.
This is the middle section. These are ribs. This is belly that would come into bacon.
Okay.
Then this is shoulder, which you would make pulled pork or any of those kind of miraculous things with.
Sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, so and what kind of tools are you going to use to do all this with?
So I have a variety of tools, because you are taking an animal, you're cutting through bones, you're doing all kinds of things. So I have a series of knives. Some are smaller, some are curved, so that when you make your cuts, when you pull, it stays on the cutting board.
Got it.
And then just larger versions of them because it's a larger animal. Then for some things, you use a cleaver.
What do you use a cleaver for?
Sometimes you'll go through bones. Sometimes you'll separate ribs. You'll use this way, a cleaver and a mallet.
Stand out of your way.
Rather than like hacking like this, which is a super blunt instrument to try to do anything with.
Well, it looks pretty dangerous too.
Yeah, and then for bigger parts, I have a bone saw.
I have one of those in my garage. Well, maybe smaller.
It's smaller, and it's a hacksaw in your garage, and this is a bone saw. And they are different.
I have a weird garage.
Yeah, no. And then this is just a sharpening steel to keep everything sharp. Normally I would wear these tools on my side. Because you're working in an area like this, you don't want to be putting knives down and then flipping an animal over and maybe forgetting where that knife is, and then you tear your hand open.
Super sharp
And
knives.
it's also super cool. It's this like metal tool belt for knives.
That's great.
So I will flip the pig here.
Whoa.
And we sort of have everything here. This is the leaf lard, or
leaf lard?
Leaf lard.
Leaf lard.
It protects all your internal organs.
Okay.
Like it wraps around your kidneys and stuff like that, so that when you smash into things, they don't get injured.
Important.
Yeah. And you can use this for baking and things like that if you want. You grind it up, and it's a very pure, clean fat. It doesn't have a lot of flavor to it.
Okay. Whereas most fat has a lot of flavor to it.
It has a porky sort of note.
Got it.
So
a porky note.
Porky note, and you may or may not want that for your pig, So to take the ham off, this is a whole muscle group that comes up in through the top of the leg here that kind of comes out into the tail.
Okay.
This is the bottom of the spine. So you just go in 2 vertebrae on here and make your cuts there. And this is one of those ones where I will use the bone saw to get it into a usable sort of piece.
Stand off to the side here for this. Sure you don't need safety glasses for this?
No safety glasses. Bone saws, the teeth go forward, so you cut on the push.
Got it. It looks pretty easy. Is that hard to push through like
It's
that?
one of those things where, you tell people to let the saw do the work.
Right.
And that doesn't mean anything until they've actually figured it out.
Got it.
They're just like, I don't get it, and they got this animal, and it's shaking all over the place, and so.
Do you sharpen your own saw, or do you have to just get new blades?
No, just get new blades. And then I'll move the rest of this up over here, and then we can, now that we have it in a sort of a manageable piece.
So how heavy is this piece that you're lifting right now?
I don't know. The pig was 170, which is small for most of the animals I work with. And so this is probably like, I don't know, 50 pounds maybe?
Okay.
Not that much.
That's not too bad.
Yeah.
So what size do you typically work with?
I work with a pig that's about 75 pounds heavier than this.
Wow.
What I like is the legs to have a little bit more fat on the outside, and as well the shoulder to have more fat in there, so that when you make pulled pork, something like that, there's a lot of fat that kind of gets into the meat and adds flavor.
Got it. So you just like a few of the portions to be a little bit bigger. And what kind of pig is this?
This is a Berkshire and a Chester White, cross.
Okay.
So many pigs are crossed so that certain pigs have different desirable characteristics. So pure breeds are good, but sometimes you get things that go in, like purebred dogs. Sometimes there's hip problems or things like that. So you're
Got
looking
it.
to have a little bit of a sort of muttly nature to them,
Right,
but
right.
certain have more fat, certain have bigger hams or more defined hams, so it depends what people are breeding for.
I see. And so what was this one bred for specifically?
These are, for meat, these are for the chop to be a little bit more uniform, but just, it's worked out for them that they can produce a consistent pig
I see.
with their breeding program.
I see. Consistency.
And that's what I like.
Consistency. Yeah, it's important.
All right. So before we go too far, so this is the jowl of the pig.
Okay.
So the head is obviously
Otherwise
here.
known as the cheek side.
Yeah, the cheek is a separate muscle that sits actually inside it's a cushion almost between your jaw and the skull.
Okay.
But it is delicious.
What do you do with that?
You can make a bacon with it. The Italians make something called guanciale, where it's dry cured.
Guanciale.
But pigs chew all day, so there's just all this intermuscular fat, and it's delicious. But you can braise it like shoulder, but it has all this nice fat in there.
Wow.
All they do is chew.
I see. So it's something to cook slowly, like you say.
Cook
like braise
slowly,
it.
yes.
Yeah,
It's a strong muscle. It requires a lot, And then this is the shoulder. To take the shoulder off, and here you count in 5 ribs. And you kind of lose the first one sometimes up in here.
Okay.
You find it with the tip of your knife.
Yeah, I heard that. Tick, 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 tick,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the 5th rib here, and you kind of cut between the 4th and 5th. And this is what I
Okay.
need. And
And
here
why,
I can
why
kinda,
do you start right inside? Why do you start inside there?
I'm trying to find a mark on the outside here.
I see. So you just
you
push
know.
through
You
and then
kind
look on
of
this side.
push through, and then you find it,
I see.
and then you kind of come in this way and connect it.
So nervous to put my face in here.
Yeah. No, very
Okay.
sharp knives.
Yes. How often do you sharpen your knives?
Every day, all the time.
Every day, all the time.
Kind of.
Yeah. That makes sense.
But, once a week for like really, really good, and probably, you use a sharpening steel every day, between sort of certain cuts.
Right.
So here I'm just,
Letting the saw do the work.
yeah, as much as possible you want it to do the work. But you don't want to cut, as much as possible you don't want to cut meat with the saw, so you just want to go through the bones and stop.
And stop and then finish it up.
And then finish it up.
Got it.
And then
that's
the-
because you don't want to pull the meat apart?
It's
or?
just a really blunt instrument to be doing what you're doing.
Hey, it's starting to look more familiar.
Yeah,
When you look at
exactly.
the
Once,
inside.
pig's sort of an intimidating thing.
Yeah.
But once you get it into parts,
Yeah.
you can see at this end, that's a pork chop
Yeah.
right there until we, and and this is the pork shoulder. This muscle here is a copa. The Italians cure it as a single muscle. You can make it into what's called like cottage bacon and things like that. So I'm going to make another separation here.
What's cottage bacon?
It's a more of like a British kind of thing, but it's just a more like a Canadian bacon kind of thing where there's more meat, less fat.
Right. It looks pretty lean in there. Yeah. And what's that particular bone you're cutting through right there?
So these are just the ribs that I'm coming to, but then I'll
just the
hit,
ribs through?
Yeah, but then in here is the shoulder blade
Got it.
that you'll finally get to. And, then I'll
And you go around the? No, you're going through the shoulder
No,
blade.
it's flat on the inside. Sometimes you cut the cutting board by accident.
Do they have power saws for this kind of thing?
Yeah.
Do you ever use one?
I have not used one. I've seen them. They're really kind of cool.
Uh-huh.
Very sort of intimidating because it's just a blade that's sort of like hanging out in front.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, or they make something that'll split them it almost looks like a Sawzall. It's like a single blade that somewhere between a Sawzall and like one of those kind of hokey sort of carving knives. that
Okay.
are like,
Yeah. This like double bladed and.
That's what they use to split the spines.
I see.
So
So they use one on that, and that's how that.
yeah.
Why that looks that way.
So yeah, so this is a pork shoulder, and then this is the bottom part of it.
Uh huh.
You would take the leg off here as well, just to you know, make it. This is the shank, or what you would cure into a hock, a ham hock, if you know, salted it and smoked it.
Right. And then cutting around the joint there, or are you cutting through?
The joint is this super goofy, like C-shaped thing, so I could do it. It's easier just
But it's a lot easier to just to saw.
It's just easier to be done.
saw right through
yeah,
it.
it's this. Well, there's some super tough. Oh, that's skin.
I would imagine the skin is really, really tough.
Yeah. It'll hang up the saw. Yeah.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah. So once again, the right tool for everything, right?
Yeah. Whoa. And sometimes it's. There we go. Not as clean as you want it to be.
That's real life, though. There
Yeah,
you go.
yeah. So, you know, and you would take the foot off, but you can braise that piece of meat.
Would you do anything with the foot?
I throw them into stocks and things like that. There's a lot of gelatin in there.
So for thickening and some good mouthfeel.
Yeah, for texture. So yeah, so this is the shoulder, and you know, so this is something you'd slow cook for, you know, pulled pork, those kinds of things. Pigs support the majority of their weight on their front feet, and their back legs just kind of like pivot and move them.
Yeah.
But it's why the two muscle structures, why a ham is so much different than a shoulder when you cook it. You know?
Got it. Because they've been standing on their shoulders.
They support almost all their weight
life.
right there, and the back legs are just for sort of locomotion or whatever.
Right.
You know? And then this is, you know, these would be your ribs coming in here.
Yep.
You know,
so the top of the rib, the end of the ribs right there.
Yeah, so these are the rib chops. These are what you would call your loin chops. This is where the tenderloin sits.
Oh, I see it. Yeah.
You know, so down in the back is where like a T-bone would be. The eye of the tenderloin is the eye of the T-bone.
Got it.
You know, so depending on what you're doing, you're looking at more the front.
Yeah, and so even on a relatively large pig, or it looks large, the tenderloin is very small.
Oh, they're insanely small. Given you know, on a 300-pound animal, they'll weigh 12 ounces.
Right.
Yeah,
but everybody talked about it. Tenderloin.
Well, yeah, but that's probably more marketing than anything really. I mean, I take them home and eat them for breakfast with the kids, but I mean, I feel like they're mostly boring. You know, they don't do anything when you cook them.
Do you have any tenderloin on the menu?
We don't. I would never write a menu around something that we would see as really being unsustainable to raise.
Right.
Like there's so much.
Yep.
It's just too small a thing.
Tiny
and
little
it's just boring. I mean, I don't know. You could do that at home. You know? So, yeah. So, generally, when you kind of cut, you look at the eye in there.
Yeah.
And you take sort of half that distance and carry it out. So, like this. And so, I'll cut the bone there.
Why is that the rule? Where you take half the
It
distance?
makes a pretty bone, you know?
Okay.
On the chop. And then, you know, and that's purely for aesthetic reasons, what you want to do. There are people that, you know, leave these bones whole.
Right.
And just, you know, make it look cool.
Right.
Or sort of more
like
Flintstone-like.
Like a caveman cut.
Yeah.
Like,
depending on how sort of
grab it
like,
and
you
just
know,
gnaw on it.
how, you know, caveman you want to be.
Got it.
So, yeah, so I'll just mark it. And then kind of come around here and do the same thing.
You like it to be a little bit shorter.
Yeah,
typically.
I mean, yeah. And then, you know, because it's not straight, so you've got to kind of figure out how you're working it this way.
It's not all science. It's kind of artsy too, right?
Yeah. No, that's true of any food thing.
Yeah.
You know, if it was science, it would be way easier. You can get things to behave the same way twice. You know, if you can get something to do the same way like every time, like wow, then you know, yeah. So I'm kind of coming in here.
So then you mark it.
Yeah, you want to kind of.
Once again, not necessarily a straight line. You're just.
No, I mean I am going to have to cut it with a saw, but. You know, and the skin on the outside is the tough part. You know, so you kind of go through.
Oh, to mark the skin on the other side?
Mark the skin on the other side.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you were going at full speed, how fast can you do this?
I mean, this, honestly, sort of like, this is kind of like, you know, like when you're moving and you get the couch and the bed out and you think you're making progress and you're really not because it's all in the details. Like it gets harder the smaller the pieces get.
Got it.
You know, so yeah, I could do this, you know, in a half an hour, and make chops that are sort of service ready. But bacon, or the belly takes time to cure, or this takes time to cook, and things like that.
Sure.
So the work is all sort of, this is the fun part, sort of. But then you can see I've marked it, the cuts there.
Your not so straight line that's there. Got it.
Yeah, and I'm gonna try to kind of match this up here. Back.
So why do you cut the skin first?
So that you can make it's kind of goofy to use the saw in here, and you're gonna want to go through, and then you start running into the.
Whew. You have to be kind of strong to do all this. To be a butcher.
I mean, I do it with my 12-year-old daughter sometimes.
Does she holds and you saw?
No, but she would like clean that out, and it's like smaller things she would totally
Awesome.
do. Yeah.
So clean that out. What do you have to do with this?
This, you would take the skin off. You would just clean the skin off,
Right.
and then, I mean, you can leave it on there if you were just gonna, but stuff if you were to turn it into a ham hock or something like that, there's no pores in a pig's skin, so you can't really salt or do anything to it. The salt doesn't penetrate.
Got it. So you need to take it all off first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so then this would be, so these would be your ribs down here. And this is pork belly at this point. This becomes bacon when.
So this right now is considered pork belly.
Correct.
Even though there's a couple ribs on it.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, if you were to buy it, it would be the belly.
Got it.
So, you come along. You find the ribs.
So you just cut right under the ribs.
Yeah, and depending on what you're doing, if like ribs were your goal, you would leave a little bit more meat on there. If bacon was your goal, you would, or just as much, a bigger piece. If you had a ramen shop, you want as big a piece of pork on there as possible.
Right, but for what we're doing here, you're cutting as close to the bone as possible.
Yeah,
to make the most bacon.
Yeah, I'm all about the pork belly.
Got it.
Yeah, stuff like this doesn't so much interest me, like fresh pork chops. I find kind of boring.
Is that because
I don't know. I just don't.
They're easy, or?
Yeah, they're just kind of easy. They're just sort of, people love them, and that's fine.
Yeah.
So I like all that sort of, I don't know, they call it value-added stuff in the meat world. It is like turning this into sausage, turning this into bacon, turning this into a ham.
Right.
It's just, there's more of a challenge. I think it's a little bit more interesting.
And you're really transforming the raw ingredient too.
Yes, yeah, and that's what I like. Like I said, I like to do stuff with my hands, and and this is very methodical. Like you kind of go about this the same way every time.
Right.
So I think a lot of the fun for me, at least, is in turning these into some sort of other product, a value-added thing. So taking the pork belly and turning it into bacon. That's far more interesting to me. The loin you can cure, but we don't do it a ton. This is obviously money in the restaurant, just chops.
Absolutely.
You can turn this into fresh sausage. You can turn this into a dry cured meat. As far as the shoulders go, taking the jowl and turning that into guanciale, which is a lot like pancetta, is a better descriptor.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
Pancetta would be made out of the belly. Pancetta would be made out of the belly, but it is not smoked. That's sort of different.
That's the difference.
I mean,
spiced and
yes,
different,
exactly.
different things about it.
And then turning the ham, a fresh ham into a cured ham. I love prosciuttos. I love more of that like sweet sort of country ham, but to eat it fresh, it's a little bit boring. To me.
Right. So the value-added things and transforming the ingredients by smoking and salting and curing and fermenting and
so like a fresh, so a dry cured ground meat, you ferment them, you age them. A ham will take you 2 years. It sits on salt for 2 months. It'll hang for 22 months.
Wow.
Before you can even look at it.
2
Before you know
years.
if you screwed it up or you did it right.
There's no testing, no way to know.
There's no way to know. They kind of settle out and look like they look about 2 months in, and then you just kind of.
Then you wait.
Yeah, but it's such a big piece. Like I said, there's no pores in the skin, so when you salt a ham, all the salt is penetrating through the cut side.
Right.
So it's all kind of going this way.
Going that direction. Yeah.
So you need to salt it and then stop because there's enough salt in there to do the curing. But you can keep adding it and it'll keep pulling it in. So you stop and then the salt sort of works its way all the way up into, all these deep parts in there.
How do you know? How do you know that it's
all
it's
about
in there?
the science or the art, really?
Yeah.
I mean, the science is like the salt is a certain percentage. It's 4%, sometimes 3.5% of its weight.
Of its weight. Okay.
Of its weight
that you put on initially.
Yeah, and you want it to absorb. The ground salt cured meats have about 2.7% salt, and that's a super important number. That's what makes it safe.
Oh,
that's what starts to make it safe.
That kills the initial bacteria.
Yeah, at which then when you ferment, you then you're dropping the pH of the product, and then that sort of pH change is what kills a whole additional. It doesn't necessarily kill the bacteria. It prevents them from starting to grow.
Right.
In some ways, they're all kind of present, and you're just trying to like kill the environment. As prolific as they can grow, they want really tight conditions. They want sort of like your body's temperature, and if you modify any of that, you make it safe.
Right. So by changing the pH, by adding the salt, all of that, you make it more safe.
Yes, and then dry curing it by removing moisture.
Right.
So that removing that moisture, they want a moist environment. They want to be sort of like inside your body.
This is complicated stuff. This is
It's
like not
super complicated.
Don't do it at home
It's
kind of stuff.
It's people can do it, but people have done it traditionally for thousands of years. But you do need to pay a lot of attention.
Right.
Because I think the big problem is people who, I make batches all the time and I don't screw up any longer, but people screw up. And if you've watched something cure for 3 months, you really want to eat it. You really want to eat it. You just want to try it.
Yeah, there's that satisfaction
and
at the end
maybe
of it,
something went wrong. If it looks wrong, you need to be able to throw it away and walk away. And and some people aren't willing to do that. And they could, there's some really crazy bacteria that can grow if you don't know what you're doing. Botulism is bad.
That's right. So how do you know if something's gone wrong?
Sometimes visually you can see that the cures haven't taken place right.
What does that look like?
The meat won't still be pink. It will kind of be this brown.
Yeah.
But then there can also be conditions that happen with the drying, where these are weird little. It's sort of the ribs that are right in here, and it's where sort of growth is taking place. So they're not as solid as you want them to be.
Okay, so that's like the sternum.
Yeah.
Right there.
But see how they're like I can cut through them.
Oh yeah.
They're so
so it's still there's growth is sort of a soft bone.
Yeah, it's just sort of this point where the two kind of meet up, and you can really just pull your knife right through.
Oh wow.
them.
Yeah. Don't need the bone saw for that one.
Not for that one. You just get to look cool, like that as a rib.
Like you're just that strong.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so I'm gonna take and just kind of, so this is belly, and it's just got some wavy little bits to it. So I'm just gonna kind of square it up, which is what they call it in the bacon world, so that it sort of looks like it'll look later on.
I see. Is that so? It'll be it'll cure evenly, or
it'll cure evenly. It'll kind of be the
right?
yeah. I'll use the trim for something else, but you would have to cut it away later, and it looks less kind of clean. And then this is also like where it's making the transition to the back leg. And so this is a goofy tail piece,
So that comes off too.
Yeah.
Got it. So what will you use the scraps for that you take off?
I usually use them in sausage, fresh or cured. It has very similar fat composition. And that's what you're sort of, that's what you're sort of looking for,
You can see really hard to poke through.
Yeah.
Right?
And and then like the cuts you make, you do like this is an actual like knife hold. You see people who are like straight ahead chefs.
Hold.
Yeah. You see people that are actual chefs and they're trying to like do this goofy, and it's like, you want to make these pulling cuts so that it's clean.
Wow. Yeah, and people also say don't cut towards yourself, right? But you're poking it and then ripping it towards yourself.
Yeah, I would yell at my kids if they did it.
If they cut it like that? No?
Yeah.
Not the safe way.
They would get in trouble. And
Got
then
it.
I'm just trying to like flatten it out.
A little massage.
Yeah. And you kind of, the skin's, as you saw earlier, is super tough. So
right.
You kind of.
Just sliding through, not poking through the skin.
Yeah.
It's just super tough, yeah.
And you sort of. So here, how I came down this side and went across, and then I'm coming back down. So there's just a little space down the middle that I missed.
Got it.
But you're trying to only just go in the depth of the knife, because if you start going further, then you're at this weird angle.
Yeah.
And you
Pops the
start,
knife in.
it starts making this goofy cut. You want it thick and you want it uniform.
Yeah. You spend a lot of time trying to get it to be thick and uniform.
So that, and then here, I mean, I
was going to ask, do you ever just use a really long knife and get it all in one?
I start, honestly, even myself, getting a little bit nervous about big knives and all the force you have to use.
Yeah, especially cutting towards yourself too, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, this is everything I would tell my kids not to do. And then they do it. Like they're super...
Now you're on camera breaking the rules. So.
Yeah. Well, I've trained my children how to use knives. There's a lot of people who, even their teachers, sometimes they're like, she was doing blah, blah, blah. That's dangerous. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of finish coming around here.
Okay.
But because I like using smaller knives because you are using so much force, I just feel more comfortable if I was to stab myself.
I see.
I have buddies who do this who wear chainmail aprons.
A chainmail apron?
Yeah. They're super kind of cool. They have these like Kevlar things in the middle.
Yes.
And, but I've seen...
Stop a bullet or a knife kind of a thing.
Yeah. So you just want to kind of come through. And then I just kind of, because I went down this side, I went down this side. So you just got to kind of find the part in the middle where maybe you
fold it back in.
Yeah, and it's not much. So, and then
awesome.
this.
What do you do with the skin there?
We make chicharrones with the skin.
Nice.
So you further clean the meat off of it, then you boil them to cook them, then you dehydrate them to get all the moisture out of them, then you deep fry them.
Yes, and they're crunchy goodness.
And they are crunchy. We do those kind of like gourmet potato chips.
Yeah.
So mostly they have like a vinegar powder on them, but sometimes there's thyme and or rosemary and lemon zest or whatever it
you
might
forage
be.
from the front yard kind of a thing.
Yeah. So then we're gonna go on and I'll turn this into bacon and we'll work our way. I'll work my way through these shoulders and do some cured meats with those, and we're good.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.